The house was filled with the moth liaison's office in no time. The liaison for Ravenswood was senior operative, Jonathan Prodigal. He was your typical hairy mountain man type. He wore a checkered flannel shirt which he had barely tucked into his dark brown chinos. To finish off the look, he had on an old pair of brown boots. He was scruffy and ungroomed. He looked like he hadn't slept for a day. Ravenswood wasn't really a place known for crime. Usually, it was just some old lady complaining about a garden ornament that was stolen from her backyard only for her to find it in the dog's kennel. The worst I had heard of was a man who ran over someone's foot. This was a first. Murder was not commonplace in Ravenswood. Just my luck. I was starting to see a pattern. Anyway, the medical examiner confirmed that the words on his back were made by a military-grade dagger and that the teen had died from blood loss. His parents were inconsolable. They kept asking what they had done to deserve this. The answer is nothing, I guess. Tragedy seemed to befall anyone. You could do a million bad deeds and still live a happy life, but as soon as you decide you want a quiet life away from the city, your teenage son gets killed in a town with a 0% murder rate. It was all up to chance, I guess. The crying started to make me feel uncomfortable. I had to slip out before things got worse. So, while Brannigan questioned the parents, I made my way out. To be honest, I was going to head back home, but something caught my eye. It was a blood trail. It wouldn't lead me far, but I thought it would be worth a shot to see where it leads, so I did. I passed a few houses and finally found myself in the city center. It was dead. Just one or two stores opened and a local tavern. I looked around for any clues as to what could have happened to the boy. I heard something from the woods. There was a rustling of leaves, so I slowly followed the sound to not scare away who or what it was. I sensed the panicked heartbeats. They sounded like the heartbeats of young people. As I got closer to the heartbeats, I heard sniffles. They were crying. This would be the clue I was looking for. I finally reached the source and I peered through some tree. I saw two teenage girls sitting together in the dark and crying. They had their arms around each other and seemed to be whispering nervously. I turned up the volume. I could hear what they were whispering about. What do we do? We can't go to the liaison office. We will get in trouble too. Why don't we just keep quiet? No, we can't. Roger's probably dead. He took it too far. I had heard enough. I revealed myself to them and asked them what was going on. They came up with some lie about how they were just lost. I walked closer to them and asked them once more what was going on. They tried to make their escape, but I grabbed them by the collar and told them about Roger. That's when they cracked. The one was desperate to tell me something while the other was still trying to hide the truth. I assured them I could help them, but they needed to tell me what was going on. I lied and said I was part of the liaison's office. Even though it was a lie, I still felt dirty parading as a moth operative. They finally relented and told me the weirdest tale I had heard in a while. These two girls had been approached 2 months ago by a guy in their class to join an after-school club. They thought nothing of it and joined this guy in an old, abandoned house deep in woods. When they got there, they found 6 other teens sitting around the table smoking, drinking, and having a fun time. The boy who had invited them had called this a place where you could be free and you would be away from your parents. This was appealing to them. They came back a few more times and everything felt the same until one day they came across a mysterious man sitting in the corner. They asked who it was, and they were told that he was the founder of the club. Later that afternoon, the man would stop observing to climb on the table. That's when he started preaching about freedom, love, and surrendering yourself to nature. They didn't think much of it until he started asking them to commit petty crimes and take hard drugs, even drugs that had been extinct like hysteria. He would also preach about disobeying parents and how someday he would lead a revolution to take power away from the older generations. So, the girls had been tasked to recruit Roger. It was a hard sell, but eventually, he joined. Things were okay at first, but Roger started to rebel because he was not buying into this man's vision. So, the founder did the only thing he saw fit. He lured Roger in today and bound him to a chair and forced him to take a concoction of drugs. Roger started to bleed from his nose and ears. The Keens begged for the Fowler to stop, but it only seemed to encourage him more. He untied Roger and forced one of the girls to carve his love on his back to teach him a lesson about loyalty. After that, he let Roger go into the woods. After hearing this story, I slowly let go of the girls and stared into their desperate eyes. They had seen and experienced things that they shouldn't have. They were lured into a cult and were in too deep. If Brannigan found them, they would be shipped to a juvenile rehabilitation facility in Reevesbury. Maybe it was the best thing for them. If they stayed in this small town, they would have been forced to ignore what happened. They would be trapped in a town so desperate to be safe and okay that they would do anything to avoid trouble. I started to doubt this town's reputation for peace. There is no way a town like this could breed such a vile creature. I asked the girls where I could find this abandoned building, and they pointed me in the right direction. I convinced them to go to the liaison office. Since they were minors and they had been coerced, they would get rehab or house arrest. They agreed and ran back towards town. Here I was again in the middle of a storm when all I was looking for was sunshine.